3:30, so thank you. All right, we will go ahead and get started. It is May 23rd. It's the meeting of the Des Moines Water Works Board. We are expecting one more board member to join us, but we do have a quorum. Andrea is joining us in transit. And so we will start with the consent agenda. Ted?
So a couple things that I want to give quick updates on as part of the consent agenda. First of all, I want to share some follow-up to last month's board meeting where we had a number of employees visit and express some concerns about a number of different items. I sent an email out to the board, senior management team, union leadership on Thursday of last week to give a similar update, but just to update everyone here. We did meet, Andrea and Graham and I met with Bill, Uba, and D. Clark, and Adam Swihart from AFSCME on May 3rd, talk about concerns that were shared. What our plan was for moving forward in terms of how we were going to discuss and document and communicate progress on those issues. I had an opportunity to visit with Jenny immediately following that meeting and with Doug the next day and kind of lay out a plan for getting those things discussed and documented and communicated to the group. Attached to the email was the initial list, things that Jenny had put together. I know that list has been updated at least a couple of times since Thursday. I know that Jenny has been communicating that with her group on a regular basis. It's posted down there. I also indicated here that Amy, Kaylor, and Doug were able to meet with Bill and Lori Leo to discuss some specific concerns from HR, and they're moving forward on some of that. So a number of things happening. I think we're working in the spirit of what was discussed in the May 3rd meeting. Union, we have another meeting scheduled here early in June as a follow-up to that, to just make sure we're on track there. But I think that's moving on, be ongoing for some time, a number of things. One of the first things we're going to do though is a targeted comp study for some of the positions in water distribution, just to make sure that we are paying fairly and equitably for those very important positions we've struggled to fill. And if not, we'll see what we can do about that. And even if we are, see what we can do to move forward. So get those positions filled. That group. So that's where we're at on that. I guess unless anyone has any questions about that specifically.
Now, I appreciate the continued follow-up that you've had. I know Andrea and I met with you and we went into far more detail than this at our chair vice chair meeting. So, and I'm sure anyone on the board, if they have questions, they can always follow up with you on where we are on individual items.
Absolutely.
Anything else on the consent agenda?
I would touch on regional governance if I could.
Sure.
We have issued the second draft. You see a copy of the May H2O line in front of each of the board members. A pretty good article in there about regional governance and the value it's going to bring to Des Moines. The second draft was issued. We asked for comments back by May 12th. We did get comments back from a number of the communities, and I would put those comments into three categories. I would say one category is fairly simple comments that we can likely incorporate easily just to clarify some things. Second category is educational items where we literally just need to continue to educate our regional partners on how this is going to work and what the intent is, and that there probably isn't the need to update the agreement based on those kind of educational comments. And then there are some comments and some requests that we're just not going to be able to accommodate, related to changing the methodology for allocating capacity at Saylorville and changing methodology for other things that have kind of been baked into the agreement over the last couple of years. Although we certainly understand why some communities are interested in receiving more capacity and doing that calculation in a different way. We just don't feel that this is the right time. That we can change direction on some of those things later. So really, I think the comments that need to be incorporated into the agreement can be done, can happen fairly simply. Some of the educational conversations and the more difficult conversations about things that we may or may not be able to do, or things that we're already scheduling meetings to take care of here. Hopefully within the first week of June, we'll have the opportunity to visit with anyone who wants to visit with us. And then we're hoping that in June we'll have next draft. I like to think of it as the final draft of the agreement, ready to share. Try to move this thing forward. So I feel like progress.
Oh, okay. I don't know about it.
And
Okay, you too.
So I'm looking for a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Motion.
Second,
Second.
all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? All right, we'll move along to item 1A.
In order to consider the SRF. No, so I think we need to have, I think we'll note in the minutes who was here. But I think it'll be Diane because she can participate electronically.
Okay. So when we do the roll call vote on item one, we'll ask Andrea to unmute. Okay, thank you. Item 1A. Would you like to give us an overview of this?
absolutely, Sue, this is actually what we're doing here is fixing the date for a public hearing for next month. And this is a public hearing on the issuance of just over $10 million of water revenue capital loan notes or state revolving fund notes for design of the expansion of the Saylorville water treatment plant. This is a 10 MGD expansion of the Saylorville water treatment plant, additional capacity that is critically important to providing safe water in adequate quantities to us and all of our regional partners here in the Metro. This is, there's some description about specifically what's going to be in there between 4 and 6 horizontal collector wells, transmission line, process equipment to provide 10 inch of additional capacity. This is a design loan, which is a 0 interest loan for 3 years. It's our intent to roll that into the construction loan once that loan is, the design is complete and it's ready, it's time for construction, we can roll that into construction loan. And then all of that debt is our intent to transfer that debt to the region. That's part of the 2080 agreement that we're developing and reviewing and intend to enter with the other partners in the region. It is important to know that we are taking this debt on as joint owners. And if for some reason regional governance doesn't happen, we will continue to move forward, all likelihood with expansion of the Saylorville treatment plant, which will still be needed. And we will roll this into that construction cost. We will go down a different path, selling purchase capacity, whatever we need to do. But the intent, the way the agreement is structured, is that this would be rolled into the construction loan, and that would become debt. That's the responsibility of Central Iowa Loans. Crystal clear, we are taking on this debt today, or not today, next month. We're establishing a public hearing. So are there any questions about that?
Before we get into questions, I'll be looking for a motion to adopt the resolution fixing date for a meeting on the proposition to authorize a loan and disbursement agreement and the issuance of notes to evidence the obligations of the water utility thereafter. Have a motion.
So
A second.
second.
Okay, now any discussion on this or questions?
Ted, this is the most expensive cost of water ever, correct?
That is correct. In our experience.
In our experience. And when we started this project, our kind of initial plan or our cost estimate was what? Around $60 million.
In the 2017 long range plan, I would say yes, it's about a $60 million.
And it's just, I mean, with pandemic and cost of
Now it's
doing things, it's $160 million. I mean, it's just a lot of money. And I just pointed out because it's a lot of money.
It's a lot.
And it's also something that we're investing in that, in my opinion, if we were taking better care of our resources and weren't threatened by pollution and other things in our rivers, we might not be having to invest this money. I mean, part of the reason we're doing this is to protect our, and correct me if I'm wrong, Ted, but it is to protect ourselves so that we have access to water in times of drought that might be caused by climate change, but also because of pollution and other things. Is that correct?
Part of the plan here is to ensure that we have reliable quantities of water even at times of drought. So that is correct. That we have reliable quantities of water even when the water in the river is of suspect quality. So there's certainly costs in there that relate to those two things.
Yeah.
Some of it, of course, is just we need more water.
We need more water.
Naturally, yeah.
And remind me too, was it last summer or the summer before where we were dangerously close to not being able to take water out of the river because we had low flow and we had a high nitrate condition? And I can't remember if that was last summer.
This is not last summer. It's the summer before, where we had the very high microsystem and the low river levels.
High microsystem, lower levels. Plus the nitrates, you run the nitrates.
I was right. It's microsystem here. Thank you for that. Yep.
Right.
Yep.
It was actually 2 years ago when microsystem was 8.
Yeah.
Yep.
Rivers were extreme.
That was 21.
Right. And the reason I just bring that up, I want to make sure I get the facts right. Corrected, man. I appreciate that. But I mean, it's a whole bunch of money we're paying to make sure that this region has water. And it's a good investment. And I appreciate the point that if regionalization does not go forward, we're still investing in this Moines waterworks so that we can provide water for the region.
Absolutely.
You know, Greg, that's a great point, and I think that shows our commitment to, yes, we will continue to govern this regional utility. But we've heard from all of the regional customers, they would like to have a seat at the table,
Absolutely.
which is why we have regionalization on the table. So I'm glad you brought that up. Our commitment is to the customers, and we hope that others are at the table as we make long-term decisions.
It's being at the table. I mean, that's the other thing that you did here, right, Ted? I mean, there's been a lot of discussion and all of our potential partners and current customers have been at the table and understand what we're doing here.
They do. And in fact, the Regional Technical Advisory Committee has started meeting on a regular basis. They were invited to be a part of the process of determining which option we would select for our next expansion. 10 NGD expansion in Saylorville is the lowest cost per NGD and the fastest timeline, which everyone agreed was in the best interest. So yes, people have had a chance to be informed and involved.
So we have a motion before us that does require a roll call vote. Yes,
I have a quick question, sorry.
yes.
I think I know the answer to this, but I just want to confirm, moving forward, if when regionalization does occur, going after SRF loans is something that the Central Iowa Waterworks is able to do rather than it needing to come, rather than the applicant needing to be individual utilities or communities, correct?
That is correct. Central Iowa will have access to SRF funding directly.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Just to note for the minutes, the resolution that you read for the action item, Sue, that was meant to incorporate the title of the resolution on page 43 of the packet here, which is a longer title. I just to clarify in the minutes, I believe that was what you intended.
Yes. And that would be great. Okay, with that, Michelle, would you like to take a roll call vote?
Bolton,
Yes.
Davis,
Yes.
Gillette,
Yes.
Upper.
Yes. All right, item B, this is the 2023-2024 asphaltic concrete surface patch contract.
Yes, Sue, every year we request proposals or take bids from contractors to provide asphalt to patch the holes that our distribution crews create in the street when they're repairing water main breaks, replacing valves, or the work that they do. We requested proposals from contractors this year. We received 5 proposals, as you can see there. The low bid this year was received from Iowa Contracting, $258,000. Each year we bid the same quantities year after year, a typical set of quantities, and those can vary a little bit, so it's easier to see what the change in price is over year. And this year we're looking at pretty favorable bids with about a 2% increase over last year. So staff would recommend that they go forward with that contract to Iowa Contract.
So we're looking for a motion to award the asphaltic concrete surface patch contract for 2023-24 to Iowa Contracting in the amount of $258,000.
So
And a second,
second.
any discussion?
Ted, is it fair to say that the price of this service fluctuates enough? This isn't one of these that we could bid out on a multi-year project. We have to do this on an annual basis because of the price fluctuation. That makes it hard to do it multi-year.
We could consider it, Graham. This one has been pretty successful on an annual basis. We do occasionally see big fluctuations, as you know,
Right.
from year to year. I think that we could consider doing multi-year. Jenny, do you have any perspective on that?
Not necessarily.
Maybe there's not a benefit to do it multi-year.
Yeah. I think that especially with asphalt, the next one is just regular concrete, which is probably more consistent. But with asphalt, we do see it fluctuates based on petroleum price.
Right.
And so there is some volatility there. And I think a 3-year contract, they will probably have to hedge that a little bit because of that.
And we're not having trouble getting bidders.
We're not.
So there's probably not a benefit.
Okay. So I'm not sure that there's a big value, and I think there could be some concern with volatility there. So we've been doing it annually.
Makes sense.
Any other questions?
Just
Yes.
it's educational for me. So I see a finite dollar amount attached to what I would assume has some variability in service level. How does that work?
We actually bid a contract that has a certain number of tons of asphalt and a certain type of patch. And there are a number of bid items. Some of the patches they have to temporary concrete patch cap we put over it. So we tell them how much to expect, and they give us a price for each of those items. And then it's actually a unit price that we pay them. So each month they do their work and they get paid based on the units or tons of asphalt. And I can't recall off the top of my head exactly what the bid items are, but it is a unit price contract. But it stays the units stay the same average every year, and this is how we compare the bids to say, okay, this is the average. What do we expect? Tell us the price. They give us the price, but it will vary from this more or less depending on the.
Ted, I have a question that maybe you can answer if someone else can. All of the bids are not that far apart except for one.
Yeah.
Does that mean that they just have so much business, they really weren't interested in it, or did they possibly not understand the RFP? I'm just curious, that's such a huge difference on one of the bidders.
And I don't know the answer. I looked at Jenny.
Yeah, we didn't ask that question, but my guess is you're first.
Okay,
The other thing that I will say, we do a lot of really small patches. And some of these asphalt contractors are more set up to asphalt entire streets for miles. Some of them, spec and some of the smaller companies are, they kind of focus on the smaller stuff, driveways and whatnot. So we might see point asphalt this isn't going to be their strength, but I don't know that for sure.
thank you. Any other questions? Okay, then, all those in favor signify by saying aye. And opposed? We'll move on to the concrete contract.
Very similarly, each year we bid our concrete patches, it's the same situation. Primarily, these are amounts of concrete that are used to patch the holes that our distribution folks cut in the street for water main breaks or valve replacements, hydrant replacements, those kind of things. Again here, but Alex, to your point before, you can kind of see more of the unit prices there and how this is constructed. This is what we consider to be a very average year with for each of these quantities, and then we ask the contractors to give us a price for each quantity. For each line item based on the quantity, sum that up, we come up with the total, and that's what you see up here at the top. Graham, to your point before, this one could potentially lend itself to a multi-year contract because we don't see huge variation, although this one went up 7.5% more than the last one. Something we could consider going forward, but we did bid this for a single year. And CTI has been doing our concrete for a few years now. They are once again low, but we recommend that the board.
So we're looking for a motion to award the 2023-24 concrete contract to CTI Ready Mix in the amount of $289,375.
So moved.
A second.
Second.
Okay, any other questions? Lindsay, I just can't help but comment and say, do you like all the board's questions about these multi-year contracts? I think we'll call that the Lindsay effect. Think outside the box. Okay, any other questions? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed?
We get Andrea.
Aye.
Did she, and that, did you have a vote on the prior agenda item, Andrea? The asphalt bid.
Aye.
All right, next item D, acceptance of the nitrate removal facility crawl space renovation.
Yeah, so this is, the board will likely remember, this was a project that we did a little over 2 years ago. It was a very difficult project. Kind of expanded its scope on us a little bit. We literally removed the entire floor from the nitrate treatment facility, left all of the vessels in place, suspended above the floor on special structural pieces that were designed and installed. Same with the sodium hypochlorite storage tanks, they remained in place too. It's a very challenging project. There were 13 change orders on this contract, which is a lot. But I want to give a little background. There were 2 of them. The first 2 on this list here that we're looking at today, totaling 91,000, were for a specialty contractor who was in to do some work underneath the floor, putting a special coating on the structural members under the floor so they would rust again. And while they were here, we had another project that we were in the process of designing and bidding structural members under our backwash tank. And instead of bidding that separately and having them come back and paying mobilization again, we were able to get them to do that while they were here, save that mobilization cost, and just extend the prices that they gave us for the nitrate facility. So that was actually a different project, but we took advantage of the fact that the specialty contractor was here, saved some money on that project, and got a good work product there. There was one change order that was related to needing a special moisture resistant primer for the waterproofing membrane. We had to do that because concrete floor, which is actually the ceiling of Clearwell, they try to dehumidify that and dry that out, get it down to the moisture content that they couldn't get it there. So it's about an $18,000 change order for a different primer to be used that can be used on wet concrete. That was necessary. That was a change. And plan. The rest of these change orders were all related to once the scope of the project increased to removing the entire floor. It's all related to realizing that there was a lot of work that we should do under that floor while we had access before we put the floor back on top of it. It just made more sense to do painting and pipe replacement and some of the things that are listed here with that open, as opposed to trying to do those things in the crawl space. Some of it was things that we didn't recognize were in such poor repair until we got the floor out. Some of it was attached to the floor, embedded in the floor, it just made sense, it had to be replaced. We don't normally like to see this number of change orders, but we thought each of these was the right thing to do. In that case, we got a lot of value out of it, but we did have a total of about $300,000. At least one of those things came to the board as an individual change order. But the rest of it was all what was going to be necessary as part of the normal operation maintenance and upkeep of that facility. So we're comfortable that we got good value out of all of that. We're bringing this to the board today to accept nitrate removal facility crawl space renovation project.
So we're looking for a motion to accept the nitrate removal facility crawl space renovation project completed by Hinkle Construction Company in the amount of $1,622,614.39. We have a motion.
So moved.
Second,
Second.
any questions? You know, Ted, I think we all have been involved in a project or an older home. And you start pulling up floors and you just never know what you're going to find. But when you look at $1.6 million and change orders of 310, I can only imagine what that 310 would have become if we had to pull up the floor later to do it again,
Or even just to do it under the,
or to do it under.
yeah. Yeah, I hear exactly. That's, I think the team made great decisions there and got a lot of good work out of it.
Any other questions or comments? All in favor signify by saying aye. Get a vote from Andrea here. Aye.
Aye, sorry, it takes a minute for me to activate that mute and unmute button.
No problem. You're doing great. Thanks. All right, so that passes and we will go on to item E.
So this is acceptance of the joint east side booster station hypochlorite feed system installation. This is a joint east side booster station serves portions of unincorporated Polk County, portions of Pleasant Hill, kind of our east coast, if you will. This is a facility that the DNR had actually recommended be installed in one of their sanitary surveys. It's called sanitary survey, when they come out and inspect our facilities. They encouraged us to install this facility to make sure we have adequate chlorine residuals in that part of our system. So September 21, the board awarded a contract to CL Carroll. There's quite a bit of work involved in terms of installing that system and upgrading electrical and controls, instrumentation, heaters, a whole bunch of stuff in that facility, and installing an eye wash and shower station so that it's hypo on them or in their eyes, that they're safe. All of the work is complete and there were no change orders in this project, so just ask the board to accept it.
Are you hoping they kind of average out?
I want to point out.
So we're looking for a motion to accept the joint feeder booster station hypochlorite feed system completed by CL Carroll Company, Inc. in the amount of $202,000.
So moved.
Second,
Second.
any questions? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye,
Going to item E. I'm sorry, F, thank you.
Item F is a request to award custodial services for the utility. We've got a couple of things happen here recently. We had a custodian retire. We went to our custodial contractor who we've used for many years and asked them if they could expand their services a little bit and do some additional work. They actually told us they were going to retire, just close the doors and no longer be a business. So we had to go out for bids. We advertised and reached out to a number of contractors who had shown interest in our custodial services in the past. We did get 4 bids, as you see there, and this is a 3-year payment program, as you pointed out a couple of times. provides value. This is not a public improvement, it's a professional service, and so we evaluate those based on firm experience, qualifications, cost references, and a whole gamut of things. And each of the members of the team rated the same company as highest score. Team is recommending that we authorize award of our custodial contract to FPG Facility Services for 3 years at $100,000.
So we're looking for a motion to authorize CEO and general manager to execute a contract with FBG Facility Services in the amount of $140,256 per year for custodial services from June of 2023 till June of 2026.
So moved.
And a second,
Second.
any questions on this? Right, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. And opposed? Moving ahead, item
We
G.
get Adrian.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I vote aye.
Okay, great. Item G.
So item G is request authorization to issue a purchase order for a new backhoe, and we had a backhoe in the budget for 2023. That backhoe is already been ordered, but following discussions with distribution staff and consideration of the amount of hours on our existing equipment, consideration of other items that were in the budget, it's been determined that we'd like to make what I would call a budget amendment to allow the purchase of a second backhoe this year. I do want to share with the board that Nathan and his team did do some evaluation on whether it might be more appropriate to lease backhoes and turn them over more frequently, but made the determination that long-term leasing is likely going to be more expensive than purchasing and owning. We've also made the determination, we think that we can defer some other purchases and purchase a second backhoe this year. Long lead time, 6 months approximately for delivery on this piece of equipment. So if we get it ordered now, we should have it here for the busy winter season. So we are requesting authorization to issue a purchase order for a second backhoe.
We're looking for a motion to authorize staff to issue a purchase order to Murphy Tractor and Equipment in the amount of $126,600 for a new backhoe.
So moved.
Second. Okay, discussion. Joe, is this why you're here?
No, my question is, why do you keep going John Deere every time?
Wow, that's a question I can't answer. I don't know what brand.
Well, I believe you did get costs from the other backhoe providers. Also, there's some advantages to having all backhoe being the same provider.
It's been that way for a long time, Joe. I know that, but I don't know details.
If you have some additional insight you want to provide, maybe that would be great. If there's something, interesting question. It's going to make me wonder. So thank you. Any other questions? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. And opposed?
Aye.
Item H.
Item H is acceptance of treatment basin number 1 rechaining. We talked about rechaining pretty regularly. We have 6 treatment basins at the Fluid Drive plant. We rechain them almost one every single year in rotation to just keep that equipment in good operational condition. This is a contract that was awarded to Waldinger February of this year. The work is complete. And we would recommend that the board accept contract.
We're looking for a motion to accept the 2023 treatment basin number 1 rechaining contract completed by Waldinger Corporation in the amount of $239,200.
So
And a second.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And opposed, none. We're going to our informational items. First, we have finance and audit committee.
So I forgot my notebook with my notes, but what I do remember was we had an update from Michelle on the banking failures that had happened earlier or months ago in relation to financial stability of our banking system in the national one. And long story short, I don't feel any reason to be concerned. And that's no longer the financial crisis du jour. So I think that, I don't know, not that it's completely past, but a lot of attention right now is being on to other items. I don't know if this, I had an open question, I guess, as I was thinking about this down here. I don't know what any sort of debt ceiling impacts would have on us in any way. Are we really isolated or do we have risks?
That's a good question. I'm not aware of it.
Other than the general economy.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. But yeah, so yeah, but that was, we just talked about the health of our banking system, and obviously as a Midwest fairly financial, fiscally conservative organization, we're not banking the Silicon Valley.
Okay, well, thank you. Next, we have the planning committee. Every member of the board happened to sit in on that because it was such an important topic of RAGBRAI, and we had a very thorough, detailed conversation with staff about plans being made, insurance, who's liable for what, who has a contract on what. I mean, it was a full hour of detail that I found very interesting. And I looked to any other board members, are you comfortable with what we're doing and plans in place and the information shared? Right.
Was there any final decision or final information regarding any additional coverage that we might consider? Ted, I know you were looking into that and trying to get some final answers.
We are still looking into it, Andrea, and I'm not aware that we've gotten the final quote. And we've been back to our broker has been back to the insurance carriers, letting them know that we needed some adjustments and the coverage that they were proposing. And still trying to work that out, but we haven't seen anything final and no decision has been made to date.
We are expecting something by
Expecting to hear from them this week.
You know, when I heard about all the various levels and this group's contract and another group's contract and contract with the foundation, I went back to the city of Des Moines for the Grace Lake and Meredith Trail to say, okay, right across the street, tell me what you have going on as far as, you know, insurance, et cetera. The city of Des Moines is self-funded. There is not, you know, they don't have the contracts that we now have in place with all these various groups and event planners. They are not going to be allowing any kind of camping there. I don't know if anyone knew that, but just thought that was interesting. I sure wouldn't want to be security over there trying to shoot people out. So I think they're going to have a ton of people try to go across the street.
They're gonna go over.
Park or, yeah, or. Great. Okay, so thank you very much to the staff for all the details from the planning committee. Stowe Foundation.
I don't have anything new to report prior to the Stowe Foundation.
Okay, thank you. And then Des Moines Waterworks Park Foundation Board, any kind of an update there?
You know, I think the hot topic these days is RAGBRAI and all of the work that's going into that. You know, also looking at the summer concert series and getting excited about the you know, as I mentioned before, putting this business model to the test and seeing how things what the outcome may be there. I know I feel like I'm forgetting something, but not being able to look at my notes. I don't know if Pat has anything else that he might want to share.
One thing we talked about quite a bit, and Sam Summers was there to talk about the possibility of using a temporary stage during a series of 4 concerts in June and into July to kind of give insurance that rain wouldn't cancel any of those events. So I mean, that was the other item we had talked a lot about.
I
On
can't unmute. Yes. Yes, that was a big item of discussion as well, and what that would look like as far as our as cost. And I know I just want to continue to bring these to your all's attentions with that outstanding but agreed upon contract of how to move forward, making sure we're aware of kind of some of these big costs that might be coming across to the Park Foundation.
Thank you. In line with all of these things, I mean, there's a tremendous amount of pressure and effort being put forth by our staff. And I just don't want that to go unnoticed. I mean, we have regionalization. We had asked to become a little more visible on what's going on with regional drinking water. That's put out. We've asked for some additional focus on safety. I can't tell you the number of times Ted has shared with Andrea and I everything going on. So thank you. I just want to say to our staff, I know there's a tremendous amount on your shoulders right now. Then you put on top of that 100,000 people in the park with RAGBRAI, but it's not going unnoticed. So thank you to everyone for all of your extra effort. With that, Ted, CEO and General Manager comments.
A couple quick things from me, Sue. We're all aware that there was a rally scheduled in the park a couple weekends ago. The Trump campaign was here, and unfortunately the weather didn't cooperate and they had to cancel. But then in their effort to demobilize, they got out into the grass, did some turf damage. Assess that. They're actually, if you drive by, you can see they're starting to kind of strip out the turf that was damaged. About 2 acres in total of turf that was damaged. We're in the process right now of assessing, what are we going to do with that? We're trying to sod some of it, we're going to seed it, we're going to hyper seed it. How are we going to repair it? Then, of course, we're working with the foundation to cover the costs of whatever that repair looks like with the event manager, the campaign. So that's moving forward, but there are a couple acres of turf that was damaged to the point it had to be removed, placed in some way. The second thing that I would comment on is that while not yet a problem, nitrates are starting to bounce around a little bit. We saw some higher numbers upstream when the rains came. We started seeing some numbers up above 10 upstream on the Raccoon River. I don't think we ever saw 10 here on the Raccoon. We certainly aren't seeing that in the gallery or coming into the plant yet, but the season started and we'll keep an eye on that as we always have to in the spring when it rains. So those are a couple of things that are going on around the utility.
Can I ask about monitoring? I know the state eliminated some funding for monitoring stations. Does that impact any of the monitoring that you regularly monitor?
I believe that the monitors that we use on the USGS stations are federally funded.
Right.
And that the Iowa Flood Center and the extensive system of monitoring that they had was not part of what we use. Nathan, can you confirm that?
I can't confirm that, but I can confirm that the stations that we are monitoring are all still.
Those are federally funded stations.
I don't know that for sure, but I think so. We participate in one of them, some of those.
Yes. The challenge, I think, is that the Flood Center had monitors all over, and they were collecting so much more data that were being used for all sorts of research and just trying to gain an understanding. And a lot of that funding appears to have gone away, which is.
Well, the website that I've always tracked, that I have bookmarked, is still live and working. And I'm assuming that's what you're saying. Mhm. pulling it up and making sure it's available to us, but it's there now. Safety update. I know you started a little bit on some of the things, but I wanted to touch on safety.
Yeah, I would, we've got a number of things going on. Unfortunately, it's hard to deal with, we can't get new people experienced and trained overnight. We're certainly trying to focus on safety training, tracking. I've directed the board's attention to the safety update memo that's in the packet today. There are a couple of things in there. One, we're at 4 recordable injuries for the year, which is not great. We're shooting for a small number overall for the year. We don't have a specific goal, but the industry standard is and industry average is about 12 for a utility our size. We'd love to be less than half of that for the year. So we're working on that. But there's also a couple of pieces of information here that I think are representative of what we're trying to do. There's a lot of department specific training that's going on, and there's a list there of 5 specific trainings that have happened in distribution here. I don't know, Dylan, if that's all in the last month or if that's just this year. 5 that are listed there. That's a sample of what's happened. But it's just an example of the types of the job specific training, and then the graphic below that is just literally an indication of the number of safety trainings that have been assigned year to date. And when you add up the numbers, it's literally thousands of individual trainings that have been assigned, and those are either some are online, some are in person, some are department specific, some of them are utility wide, just to give you a sense. Now, we also, as the board is, I think, aware, have created and posted a technical safety trainer position. We went through one recruitment there. We weren't successful, but we've reposted, and we're hoping to get some good candidates there and get someone in that role to help specifically train, focused training for all the new folks in the field. Primarily in distribution to begin with, but broader than that, longer term, so that we get some good quality time and have plenty of time to those folks train. So that's an update. Happy to take questions if there are any.
Any questions from the board? All right, and then we've got the contract status update in there. Read that. It's our complete board meeting. So we have a motion to adjourn. In a second. All in favor? Aye. Thank you. Safe travels to you, Andrea.
Thank you. Thank you all. Bye.